Hey friends, welcome back to Guess What? Compliance Can Be Simple. I'm your host, Dr. Natasha Guess, and today we're going beyond checklists, beyond policies, and beyond one time fixes. We're talking about something much more powerful, a 15-minute compliance system that keeps your practice moving in the right direction every single week. Even when things are busy, when your staff are stretched, and when you feel like compliance is the last thing that you want to do. This episode is about structure. It's about predictability, and it's about giving you a rhythm that makes your practice calmer, clearer, and more audit ready than it's ever been. So, let's get into it. So, why do rhythms beat checklists every time? I know that's a question everyone is probably like, what is she talking about? I'm talking about the rhythms that occur in your practice over and over again, consistently, versus checklists that you have. Checklists are static. They're a snapshot of what's going on. Rhythms, they're dynamic. They're a heartbeat, the heartbeat of your practice. A checklist says, we'll do this at some point of time. And a rhythm says, here's when we do it. Here's how often we do it. And here's who owns it in the practice. In most small practices, compliance breaks down not because people don't know what to do, but because there's no consistent time to do it. It only gets attention when something goes wrong, or most often than not, everyone is reacting instead of leading. But guess what? Rhythms change that. A good rhythm reduces last minute scrambling. You know which ones I'm talking about. An audit is about to occur, and auditors in your office and your staff, they're scrambling for everything in every which way. A rhythm, a good rhythm, reveals your small problems very early on. And it also builds your team's confidence. A good rhythm, will create calm even during those spontaneous audits. And it shows auditors that you're not just improvising your compliance. Remember, auditors don't just want your policies. They want to see a pattern of behavior over time. And rhythms are that pattern. So, the overview for today's 15-minute weekly compliance rhythm starts with a structure. The structure I'm going to break down is the 3-minute weekly reality check, the 4-minute micro audit, a 3-minute workflow reinforcement, then a 2-minute documentation integrity check, and finally, a 3-minute team communication touch point. That's it. 15 minutes. Consistently. And this 15-minute rhythm does more for your long-term audit readiness than one big annual compliance cleanup ever will for your practice. So, let's talk through each step in detail. Step 1, the 3-minute weekly reality check. This is your opportunity to step back and ask yourself, what actually happened in our practice this week? It isn't about forms or logs. It's more about awareness. In your 3-minute reality check, you're asking yourself, did anything change? As in, did we get new staff members? Were there any temporary role shifts? Did we add new vendors or tools? Or was our EHR system updated? Then you go to Does anything feel off, or did it feel off in the week? Were your patients confused about what they needed to do? Did staff members ask the same questions repeatedly? And were there any bottlenecks at check-in or check-out? Another big one is, did anything happen that should be logged? Was there a privacy issue or concern? A documentation issue? Did you have a near miss? Or is there a complaint that revealed a process gap? Honestly, most practices skip this kind of reflection. They just jump right into task. But this simple reality check is what keeps you honest. It keeps you from overlooking patterns that, over time, turn into findings. And you don't need a special form to do this. You just need to ask the right questions and be willing to listen to the answers. The next step is the 4-minute micro audit. The micro audit is the, let's say, the engine of the rhythm. It makes it work. So instead of trying to audit everything once a year, you briefly audit one thing each week. Think of your micro audits as mini check-ins that ask, is this part of our practice still working the way we think it should, or do we need to change something? Just a few examples. One week you can do a front desk identity verification. Maybe another week voicemail and phone scripts. And the following week you can do something as how patient communications are recorded, or how soon after a visit documentation is completed. These are simple checks that you can do to ensure that your practice is compliant and working the way that it should. Now, here's how you can run a 4-minute micro audit. Choose your focus for the week. One focus. Observe it in real time or ask a staff member to walk you through it. Then compare what you see to what you believe is actually happening. Note any types of drifts, any types of shortcuts or confusion. But remember, you are not trying to fix everything in that moment. You are simply shining light on one area so it doesn't disappear into the background. And then over time, these micro audits give you a much more accurate picture of how your practice really runs day to day. The next step is the 3-minute workflow reinforcement. This step is all about protecting your standards. Every week, you choose one workflow to reinforce. Not a whole policy, not an entire training module, just one specific behavior. For example, the first week you can focus on always using 2 identifiers before sharing patient information. The next, you might want to reinforce that documentation for today's visit should be completed by the end of the day. Then another, maybe we're reinforcing how we can handle patient questions at the front desk when the lobby is busy. This gives you a chance to explain what the standard is, why that standard matters, and what it looks like in real life for your staff members. And then you let your team go back to work. Reinforcement is not about long lectures. It's about small, frequent reminders that keeps everyone aligned. Think of this like tuning an instrument, for example, a piano. You don't tune a piano once and then call it done forever. You keep returning to it. The same goes for your workflows. You have to keep returning to it. Now, the next step is all about the 2-minute documentation integrity check. This is where you protect yourself and your practice from one of the biggest sources of risk: inconsistent documentation. Here you're scanning for integrity signals, such as, are dates present and accurate? Are there any long gaps in logs that are unexplained? Does the timing of entries make sense? Are there signatures on initials clearly present where there should be? Are there any patterns where documentation only appears just before an audit? These are things you have to check. It helps in the long run. Each week you can choose a different part that you want to look at: training logs, incident or an event log, any type of vendor list, or you can even do an internal checklist or tracker for processes. It's simple, but what you're really asking is, does this documentation tell a clear, consistent story, or does it raise more questions than answers? Remember, you don't have to fix everything on the spot, but you do want to notice these issues and either correct them while they're small or bring them into your monthly or quarterly review for deeper work. This tiny step done weekly can prevent a lot of, we did not realize that this was missing, moments later. So why not do it and protect yourself? The next step, which is the 3-minute team communication touch point, is the final component of our rhythm. This is where you, as a leader, shape culture. In 3 minutes or less, you can share one observation from your weekly reality check or micro audit, or you can offer one specific appreciation or shout out. You can even share one small improvement the team made recently. Then there's the ones that are like, name one pattern you're committed to improving together. Or ask your team a question. See what they're thinking. See what they think needs updated. You can start it off saying, I noticed this week that check-in went much smoother when we confirmed patient details early. Thank you for staying on top of that. Or you can say, we had a small documentation delay this week that we caught. Next week, we'll focus on tightening that up. See, this is not about calling out your team members. It's about inviting them in. Your goal is to build a culture where your team knows what you're paying attention to, what matters the most, where you want them to grow, and what they're doing well. 3 minutes once a week is enough to shape how people feel about compliance as something they're part of, not something that's imposed on them. And that goes a long way with staff members being able to consistently do what is needed to protect your company, your revenue, and your patients. Now, you can also do a monthly rhythm where you take 10 to 20 minutes each month. You might choose something like one process to map in more detail, or check whether previous issues have actually improved. And this is a big one. Once you change a process, you have to review that process, ensure what you have put into place is actually improving the situation, or if you need to go back to the drawing board. And this is where you start to see trends. Remember, these things are important to ensure that you're protected. You can also do a quarterly rhythm if you're not okay with the monthly or the weekly. Every quarter, you might want to review your biggest risk or pain points, You definitely want to look at staffing changes and how they affected your workflows. And then you can plan training, refreshers, or system updates intentionally. A quarterly rhythm is about zooming out and ensuring that you see what is going on within your practice. It helps you see that bigger picture, not just the week to week. Some small providers may have the time to do a weekly, a monthly, and a quarterly. It is definitely up to your team and your time management. Now, what do you think an audit-ready practice looks like through rhythm? I'm going to tell you. You have logs that are not rushed but built over time. You have staff who can clearly describe your workflows. So if you get a surprise auditor and they ask several staff members the same question, they all know exactly how to get the same workflow done because you have strategized and you've implemented this. You'll also get fewer surprises when they ask you questions. And a big one is you'll get evidence of internal review and self-correction. And ultimately, a calm, organized environment, even when the schedule is full. An audit-ready practice does not look perfect. It looks prepared. Rhythms definitely do not guarantee that you'll have no findings ever, but it absolutely reduces the number and the severity. And rhythms can also demonstrate that you are serious about improvement and oversight. As usual, let's have our audit moment. If an auditor asks you to show what you've done internally in the last 30 days to mentor your own operations, are you able to show them anything? And anything could be a brief internal review note, a micro audit summary. It can be a few bullet points from your weekly rhythm, or a quick record of something that you observed and adjusted. If the answer is a no, this rhythm is where you would want to start. As you think about your own practice, ask yourself, which part of this rhythm already exists informally for us? Which part is completely missing? And who would be the best person to help lead or support this rhythm for you? Additionally, you can ask yourself, what's one small change we can make this week to begin? You do not need to build a perfect rhythm all at once. You just need to start. To make this easier, I've created a weekly compliance rhythm template, and it walks you through each of the 5 steps, a sample micro audits topic, a reflections question for your 3-minute check-in. There are ideas for your 3-minute message to your team, and suggestions for monthly and quarterly rhythm add-ons. You can download it at guestcomplianceconsultingllc.com.